Okay, welcome to the Essence Podcast, another amazing episode. I'm so grateful that you're here, Liv, an amazing, powerful woman, sister, co-creator, and I could continue the list. I'm just so happy that you're here. I feel so much connected beyond any word. And I really want to, everybody who's listening, I want to introduce you, actually, Liv, to the listeners. And so Liv is a seven-figure business mentor who helps you to use your nervous system and the energetics to scale and create a relaxed business, and while building wealth also, of course, at the same time. So much welcome. I'm so honored you're here.
Wow, thank you so much. That was such a wonderful intro. And I'm equally honored to be here. I feel like we've had a connection for a while now. And I think this is going to be a really beautiful, expansive conversation for everyone. And I'm excited to see kind of like what we dive into, what we pull in kind of with this conversation with like coming together.
Yeah. And I already, as you start speaking, tears start flowing from my eyes because I feel this, it's just melting into oneness in this space. And I encourage everybody who's listening also to tune into the frequency that is available here. So, wow, thank you.
No, my crown, as soon as we started talking, has just like opened up, and it feels like I can feel, yeah, it's like being at Ascension Live.
Yeah. So actually, for everybody who's listening, Liv and I, we got to know each other through a mentor of ours, Andrea, a really dear mentor to our hearts. And we got to meet also in Texas a few months ago. And I feel like the connection was built there. And since that, it's like for me, it feels like an unspoken connection that is already there. And I know, Liv, that you have just so much experience. You have so many stories to tell. You have so much goodness to share. But I would love to start with something that we have been also in the journey we've been going together. One big part of that has been going through the famous eye of the needle. And I told you before I invited you here, like, hey, let's talk about that, because I think that's something really valuable that I know you experience a lot in your business, in your life. I mean, we are all in for this experience. So would you like to share, first of all, what does it mean for you to go through the eye of the needle?
Oh, wow. I feel like that's such a like a big question. So to me, going through the eye of the needle really means meeting yourself at continuous new edges without necessarily seeing what's on the other side of the needle. Right? It's being able to not really have a guarantee, to not really have any kind of certainty beyond the certainty and guarantee within yourself that you're going to keep jumping through each eye of the needle and keep going, and you trust in your landing, and you have the power to like keep going for what you know and you can feel in your heart and in your soul, even if it's not in front of you in our 3D, in our reality yet. And so to me, your ability to keep doing that is something that doesn't really stop. It's not like you go through the eye of the needle once, and I'm sure you can also speak to this, and then it's like, oh, I'm done, I went through it, we're good. It's like, oh no, that we were just getting started. And every time I go through it, I'm like, okay, we've been through the eye, and like, oh no, that was just the beginning. There's another one and another one and another one. And so it's also, yes, you're all of that, but it's your willingness to keep going through each eye as you really, to me, get closer back to being yourself. It's a closer back into who you are and who you've always been. And it's like every time you go through the eye of the needle, if we think about it like an eye, like a circle, there's a shedding, there's a letting go. And it's like each needle gets, oh, I have full body chills. This is important.
Yeah.
Gets smaller and smaller because you're stripped down. You have to let go of more of who you thought you were to go into these smaller eyes of the needle, but the smaller eyes get more expansive on the other side. So you receive more on the other side as you go through each layer, as you're shedding, letting go, and really becoming all that you truly are.
Love it. just underlining every word of it. Also from my experience, I remember us sharing some experiences like in our common group, like, hey, I'm there now. And I remember actually one big eye of the needle I had this year. I remember your words were really meaningful for me. You wrote something, hey, you got it. You got it. And it was so nice that, you know, we get to support each other also in this time. So how is it for you? How do you start noticing, oh wow, there's another eye of the needle coming? What are kind of the signs, like
Mm.
like going closer, coming closer to a new expansion actually?
I would say that things start to feel either a little sticky, a little stagnant, a little blah. Like it just doesn't feel as effervescent or alive or exciting, which to me kind of signals like, oh, there's more. It's because I'm now tapping into another level that's coming up, and it's time to kind of like move through or expand to another level. So I think anytime we feel like things are sticky or stagnant and there isn't that zest and effervescence, it's because there's another level that is calling us forward, requiring us to let go of some things, of course, but that's usually to me like an indicator. And to me, it's about not getting stuck in, you know, letting the things go, or the things that want to crumble, or the things that are coming up. And usually we have keys, you know, whether we have inklings, we want to do something different, or we want to move somewhere, or stuff is coming up in some of our relationships, whether that's romantic or friendship or otherwise. There's always little things I'm like that come up like, oh yeah, okay. And then I can see like, all right, we're ready. Let's go through the eye of the needle.
So good. And you talk also a lot in the work you do and bring to this world. You speak so much about the nervous system, and I know it's a big base of everything that you do. So what do you think it's important for a stable nervous system in those moments that things start to be stagnant and sticky, and you start noticing like, you know, it's uncomfortable, and you know actually you should let go of it, but you want to cling on to it. And so what do you think are the most important components of a nervous system that can stay stable in that moment?
100%, without a doubt, it's having safety internal to you, not placing it in external things. So when we are placing it in external things, when those things start to shift or those things start to crumble, well, of course, our nervous system is going to get dysregulated. It's going to feel unsafe. It's going to feel intense because you've placed it perhaps in people or in things or in what you thought you should do, whether that's like a certain type of job or business. All of this was placed in something outside of you. So then how can, when that crumble, how can we feel safe? We can only feel safe if safety is something built inside our bodies, inside ourselves, that is not contingent on anything else, because that is something we can always take with us through everything. Doesn't matter what happens around us. If the safety is internal, then you'll be grounded, you'll be stable no matter what. And so I really encourage everyone listening to even think about where perhaps they've put their safety in money, or a certain amount of income, or a relationship, or a certain job, or business, or even a business model, a certain way of doing things, a certain way they thought they should be. You know, and when you take that back, you know, you take your power back by putting the safety within you, you realize that you are the common denominator that's going to take you through all things. So you might as well build the safety internally, because when you've got you, that's the thing that allows you to be anchored while you go through that eye of the needle, while you navigate uncertainty, while you navigate things happen to you. But if you try to avoid things happening to you, I'm sorry to break it to you, life is not going to be that way. Things will happen, hard things will happen. And so you'll never hear me say, oh, only the positives and this and that. No, stuff will happen. Big stuff perhaps will also happen, but that safety allows you to navigate that big stuff with ease and with grace and with a lot less resistance, which means you move through it a lot faster.
Feel like that was so good. An important piece of this is also trust, like trusting. I mean, we are going through the eye of the needle. We are letting go of so much. Sometimes, as you say, like everything breaks down. And who are you then? So where do we find trust? So what helps you to create that trust to go through the unseen, actually through the eye of the needle?
For me, it's funny. I'm preparing like a free event for this, and I was thinking about this earlier today. It's about being tapped into something bigger than myself. So I think with the trust, I'm not just trusting in me, I'm trusting in the whole vision of what I'm doing for the world beyond me. And I think when there's a lack of trust, a lot of the mind chatter that goes on is, what if I fail? What if, I don't do this? It's a lot of I. It's a lot of like egoic, like, what if I don't make this money? What if I don't get to buy the house? Or but I'm so focused on like the bigger picture and like the collective and what we're creating for the world, that the world then wants me to succeed because I'm into something more than myself. And so that helps me build the trust, because when you're tapped into something bigger than yourself, you'd be surprised the universe, how it swings into action to create something that's beyond you. And that's what we're all doing, right? As high frequency creators. And so to me, by tapping into that big vision, that trust happens because it's not just me. I'm not doing it alone. There's a whole host of like beings and energies and people and realms and dimensions all helping towards the greater good and the highest good of all, as we like to say.
Wow, everybody who's listening, notice this wisdom, and I feel, I sense it with every cell. This is a wisdom that is coming from such experience. I see you like in all the things that you are beyond the scene. And I know you speak from the moments that you were laid down to the ground and everything crumpled into pieces. And then you came again and again and again. I just feel the strongness of experience there behind the words. And everybody listen carefully, listen to the wisdom that is, I feel it's like within the word that you speak.
Thank you.
Yeah. Wow. So there are some, like my fingers are burning because there's so many questions I would like you to speak to. So good. So I know you've gone a journey with your nervous system too. You build the stability from which you speak, from where you actually speak now.
Mm-hmm.
So would you like to share a piece of the story? Like, how was it kind of before, and where do you stand now in terms of that stability and the trust within?
I actually love the fact that my nervous system was so dysregulated before, so fried, so all over the place. It's the before picture is very much if there was a way to get dysregulated, I probably was. I was dysregulated in my relationships. I had severe debilitating like anxiety and panic attacks. I had health issues. I was anxiously attached in all relationships. So in all realms of life, I had a nervous system that was dysregulated. It doesn't matter if it was personal or professional. And I even remember, small things would set off my nervous system. I'd have to like micromanage situations so much so. If not, I'd get into panic. I used to be like more recipe developer and make recipes. If a recipe didn't turn out, it was a full panic attack. If I didn't manage the whole situation where I was going, it was a full panic attack. If I didn't have the full plan, like there was just so much dysregulation, partly because of the household that I grew up in. I definitely grew up in a household that didn't offer stability and safety in my nervous system, from a mom who probably couldn't give that to herself, let alone me. And so I never had that growing up. And so I really had to learn how to provide that for myself. Right. And so oftentimes when we grow up with a nervous system, and we grow up to things happening to us, whether it's like traumatic things or, neglect, abandonment, all the classic things that I'm sure your audience is familiar with, when that is always placed outside of us, and then you go to learn how to bring that inside to really be that stability for yourself, so that all the things I was looking for outside, I was always looking for it in my outside environment. And of course, it's natural when we're growing up to look at that in our parents, right? Our parents are supposed to be that for us. However, sometimes they're not. And so when I actually learned how to be that for myself, I was no longer looking for it outside. So then those things didn't affect my nervous system anymore. I no longer had something to be anxious about because I took my power back. My safety wasn't placed in something outside. So now I don't have that traditional like anxious attachment style worried. Does he love me? Do you love me? You know, if they don't text you, then you're going to freak out. You're not freaking out over money. You're not going into lack and scarcity. You're not panicked. You know, what if this happens? What if I, you know, all the different things. Your anxious mind can create 50 million scenarios in a day about what's going to happen if you let it. And so bringing that back, it's just the calm and the spaciousness that I have now. The best way I can describe it is just my mind doesn't go there. My system doesn't go there. And there's just so much more lightness once your system has anchored that in and you've brought all that safety back within yourself.
Yeah. Wow. And what comes in also is rest and relaxation. I know you talk a lot about what it means to lead actually from a place of relaxation and rest. So how does it feel to you to be relaxed? I mean, you have a big business that you build and life that is like so beautiful. So how do you feel being relaxed and resting within? What is the sense of it for you?
To me, I think when people think, you know, having a relaxed life is maybe sitting by the pool or sitting on the beach or sitting on the couch, which sure, that is can be relaxing. But for me, relaxation is an internal energy. It's the fact that I can, yes, I can do those things, but I'm not worried about money, or I'm not scared that if I slow down, the, you know, the business is going to crumble, or I'm not going to make money, or I'm not like, sure, I'm acting like I'm relaxed in my relationship, but inside my mind is going through, oh, does he still love me? Is he doing this? What is he doing? And so to me, it's actually that spaciousness in the mind where there maybe are no thoughts sometimes. There's just stillness. My system actually feels calm. And to me, that spaciousness is what allows more to come in. A lot of the times when our nervous system is at capacity and it's running on overdrive, we're actually not in the state where we can receive because we're on that high output energy. And so it's not just about relaxing, okay, I'm going to sit on the couch and have a cup of tea. It's about, okay, when I do that, how is my body actually feeling? Do I actually sink into that moment? And can I savor it? And can I receive that moment? Or am I just relaxing because I heard that I should relax? I should relax. But as I relax, I'm not actually feeling that in my body because my system doesn't have the safety to allow that relaxation. Or perhaps when I relax, there's stuff that comes up in my nervous system, right? Because there was a time at the beginning when I was relaxing where it was very much uncomfortable. If I wasn't always doing something every minute of the day, I mean, from when I woke up to when I went to bed, I was listening to something or working. That was it. There was no stillness. And as you incorporate stillness, you might find that emotions come up or uncomfortable things come up. And then notice if your pattern is to, oh, I should distract myself and maybe do work, or I should listen to something instead of actually just being with it and being with what comes up so that you can get through the eye of the needle, like we were talking about, to the other side, so that relaxation actually can feel spaciousness and you don't feel any of that like kind of low grade anxiety, that feeling in your chest or that pit in your stomach as you actually relax. And it's true relaxation.
Mm. And there it comes again, as you mentioned, the eye of the needle in terms of that resting and relaxation. I mean, as you referred to it already, it gets to be uncomfortable at times. So what is for you the experience of, I mean, you described the times as it was really uncomfortable to be in that silence and things came up. So how do you find in that uncomfort, how can you find in that very moment the stillness and the peace within?
To me, it's not about finding the stillness and peace in the uncomfortable. It's about allowing the uncomfortable to be very uncomfortable that provides stillness and peace. To me, there's actually a lot of peace in being uncomfortable. And that is something I have had to like learn how to do. But to me, when people aren't comfortable in the uncomfortable, it's because they're actually not allowing themselves to fully get uncomfortable. They're more in this limbo, this in between where they're resisting. So it's the resistance that is causing the lack of peace and stillness, not the uncomfortability itself.
Wow, I love that. That was an important piece. Everybody listen to that again. So it is the resistance. I speak about that as well a lot. It is the resistance actually that is uncomfortable. And I love what you shared actually, that we can find such stillness and peace naturally as we just allow things to be.
I think about it like being like a Buddha in the midst of a tornado, like as the chaos, as the uncomfortability, like how much can you allow it? How much can you surrender into it without trying to control it, without trying to resist it? How much can you allow?
And I know you also have a really interesting and empowering and strong money story, and you're also teaching a lot about like a stable, regulated nervous system in terms of wealth as well. So would you like to share bits of your, let's take that before after scenario again, because I know you've done a big journey in this as well. So what was the before and after in money terms?
Well, I'm going to try and make this Cole's notes because I feel like I've lived a lifetime. So I very much, when I started my business maybe 4 years ago, it was 2020, February 2020. I mean, I started from zero. And that month, I think I made $236. And since then, we've grown to a 7-figure business. So there's been a big journey in terms about learning how to respond to money, learning how to interact with money. I very much, once I found, the teachings, the world of like manifestation, everything like that early on, as I'm sure we've all been on, it was very much like an eye opener. Before February 2020, I didn't know what law of attraction was or any kind of like, the foundational things maybe we all kind of start with. And that was what really catapulted me in terms of like learning about money. This is how, money is an energy and things that we all kind of learn in the beginning, which is still true. But through that, to me, the mastery has been not just learning how to interact with money, but through that, it's always the evolution to higher forms of mastery with money, which, yes, you can hear like, oh, I went from like zero to here, which is great, but it's who I've had to become and how I've had to lead with money before the money was there yet. And I think if I were to find a common thread through my whole journey to the before and after and how I've been able to keep evolve, it's always how I lead before the money is there, how I lead before the money is there. I remember making my first like investments, in March of 2020 when I had no clue. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm paying $3,000. And like it came back within 3 days. And then I made another $10,000 and it came back within like a week of like, contracted thing. And I've been able to keep doing that because I made the moves first so that money responds to me. And that is just something that like I have continued to do throughout my whole journey, and to become more regulated with money, to look at, all right, the regulation that I had early on in my business is very different than the regulation here, right? The regulation to hold 10K months is very different than 50 or 70 or whatever it is, because you're playing with larger amounts, you're playing with larger sums, right? There's more flowing in, sure, but there's also more flowing out, right? Paying a $2,000 credit card bill is very different than a $40,000 one. And so is your nervous system, ooh, like I remember when I first started paying 40,000, like, and they're not that every month, but there are some months when you're making investments, you're paying your team, like, is that also comfortable in your body? And so when you're looking at every stage where that you are with money, for me, it was very much about learning, all right, how can I lead it in a way where we're not doing financial suicide? It's not like we're draining our bank accounts, anything, but we're always approaching that new edge to become more calm and regulated with money so that you can keep compounding it. Something that I definitely didn't do that I think I noticed people do is sometimes when you start making money, that makes you sometimes more contractive and more hoarding with money than when you made less, right? When you first start making money, it's all magic and miracles because you've never made that before. But when you start making money, a lot of people then contract because it's like, well, what if it stops coming? What if it stops working? When is the shoe going to drop? And so a lot of fear and scarcity also comes in terms of just maintaining the money that you're making or having more come in. And so then you start acting different with money, even though you're making more than where you were when you were all in like the magic, when you first discovered, that money is energy and all these fun things. And so for me, it was very much a continual, always looking at my relationship with money so that I could always be kind of expanding into more. And that doesn't mean that I haven't had times that have like challenged me, you know, different circumstances where, you know, clients have defaulted on payments, or people have asked for refunds, or, you know, I'm investing in more things than I ever have before. But to me, that whole journey has very much been about me leading first. Yeah.
I cannot help but I feel it so strong. The frequency of trust is it's filling the whole room. Like I bet others
Oh,
can
there
too.
are times I have trusted and I've had to tell my fiance, I'm just like, you got to trust me. I'm like, I trust it. And he feels how much I trust it. And it's that trust and conviction. And he's watched me pull things out of the sky, pull things out of nowhere. And he's like, how? I'm like, you got to trust. It's the eye of the needle and the trust of like, I'm going full force. That's it. It's going to work because it has to work, because like, I believe in it. And even like what we've already talked about, being tapped into something bigger than myself has also helped that trust with money.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, and I feel it really deep down. It ultimately comes always back to that in life. Doesn't matter what we do, what it's all about, but it comes to the trust and tapping to the unseen. We are not only here for the seen, we are for so much more.
And, you know, on the theme of trust, I think a lot of people wait until the trust is there in order to trust themselves. But the only way you build trust is by doing it and then learning that you can trust yourself, which when we hear it, we're like, yeah, that makes sense. But are we actually doing it? Right? Like, so let this not just be something you hear, but something that you sit and reflect on of like, oh, where am I waiting for the trust before I do the things that would allow me to build the trust? Right. And then that trust gets built and strengthened over time to be more and more and more. But the only way you show yourself that is if you give yourself the opportunity to show yourself that. And so yes, I've built this massive amount of trust, but like I had to trust myself in that first little investment. I had to trust myself a little bit there, a little bit there, a little bit there. And it's been compounding and compounding. But I definitely, you know, couldn't wait for the trust to magically be there one day without first trusting myself.
So good. Yeah, I love it. I love it. Okay, somehow the eye of the needle appears here again. So there's a deeper layer to that I would love to go to. And so there we have trust. We acknowledge there's the eye of the needle in front of that. Things feel stucky, the eye is there, and we know we are tapping. We are really going to something unseen yet in front of the eye of the needle. I also feel, and I know you speak also a lot about that in your work, that it's actually a quantum leap to go through that. We are leaving a lot behind. We are leaving things behind that we kind of also didn't want to leave behind. And still it feels like, hey, but they need to be left behind. So just curious to hear, what does a quantum leap actually mean to you?
To me, it's really about the shedding of everything in a rapid way, right? Like quite quickly. When you think about quantum leap, it's fast, so that more can rush in. So if we think about, you know, a water bottle or a glass of water, it's really about letting go of all that water. It could be limitations, conditioning, people, everything, pouring a lot out at once so that a lot more can go into that glass. Right. And so to me, in order to quantum leap, you have to pour a lot out. You have to be willing to let go of all of that to receive that much, if not more, in return. So to me, that's what quantum leaping is. It's really that letting go, providing that like sustainable foundation, right, through the nervous system regulation. Because if your nervous system is not regulated, it will be difficult to pour things out. It will be difficult to also receive. But with that regulation, you're able to do so quite quickly, over and over and over again.
I think that is an important piece that, you know, there's a lot of talk about the quantum leaps and do it. And then you are in front of it. And then we actually need to be ready for that, like fully ready. So how would you encourage people to build that trust and build that readiness as the leap is there, as the time is there. How can we prepare for that?
I would say start at least doing smaller things, and whatever you know the quantum leap is calling of you, to give yourself some proof so that your brain and nervous system has a positive bias to anchor onto versus nothing. So maybe you don't, like, I don't know, quit your job when you haven't started your business yet, but maybe like you start the business, you start making money, and then you do it, right? Or perhaps, you know, you want to move, check out that location versus just completely packing up all your stuff and tomorrow, you know, moving, which is great. If you have the trust, I always say go for it. But if you feel like you don't, then give yourself a little bit of proof, give yourself a little bit of like, okay, yeah, like I can see how it's got me. I can see how, you know, the universe is giving me proof. It's showing me evidence, and start looking for that and rewiring your brain to constantly look for it, look for it, look for it, because it is there. You have just been more blind to that because you've been focusing on perhaps all the negatives or all that you could lose, and you can't see the air quotes, but I'm doing lose in air quotes, instead of focusing on all that you could gain. But like, don't deprive yourself of like showing yourself those little ways that'll help to build that trust, and then become fearless like me. Just be willing to throw it all out the window and go.
Yeah. I really know that. Done that like 20 times until I learned that it's not about like doing it all at once, just preparing.
And once you do it, right, like we talked about already, you build more trust, right? And so like it does start to compound. The most important thing is you start. So even if you start in smaller ways, at least you start, because that builds the trust within yourself. That'll build your confidence. That'll build the safety. That will make it more normal, right, to your system in terms of getting uncomfortable. Sometimes it's even just having, you know, uncomfortable conversations in your life. Can you be someone who perhaps has the conversations with your friends or your family, like, or your partner that you've been wanting to have, right? That is a way. When you quantum leap, you're going to have to do that. So what ways are you not doing that already right now? I guarantee everyone listening, there are 3 to 5 things you could do right now that you know you're kind of being challenged to do, that are kind of small in air quotes, but they're not small. Like, they might seem like, oh, it's just a conversation, but that conversation opens up a realm of possibilities because of how you showed up in that conversation and who you decided to be in that conversation. So don't even devalue like, oh, it's a small thing, it's not going to quantum leap. I'm like, oh no, but it will compound, because it's who you're being in all those little scenarios that will add up.
So I'm curious if there's a situation from the past weeks, months in your life that you felt like you went through a eye of the needle, or you quantum leaped, and would you like to share how it was and what it was?
Oh, I feel like this whole year has been a leap for me. I'll kind of give a summation of the last like 3 months. So 3 months ago, I very much decided, kind of cold turkey, to let go of a large part of my business that I am very good at and has made me a lot of money, but just wasn't in resonance anymore. It didn't fulfill me the way it did. It wasn't, like I said, the eye of the needle where you're meant for more. And for, you know, a lot of people, letting go of a big aspect of their business, something they're more known for, that's made them a lot of money, would bring up a lot of fear and scarcity, that if they pivot, if they shift, will they make as much money? Maybe they'll have an income dip. What if this happens? What if people don't come with me? Kind of all of these limitations. The economy, you know, there's that talk, like, how can you pivot in a time where like this is going on? And I very much decided, I remember, I don't know if you were on the call, it was February 12th. I don't know if you were on that call. And I very much felt like that new vision anchor in of what we're doing. And I was like, okay, that's it, we're done. I let that go completely. And through pivoting and being so like trusting and to completely letting go, not resisting to letting it go, not kind of going half in, half out, we've pivoted in the business, and we're actually not only didn't have an income dip, but we're up this year compared to last, despite the fact that I've pivoted niches in the last 3 months. And that to me is major, because everyone would have said, don't do it. The economy, this, that. How can you pivot during this time? How can you do that? but it's because of how I operated during that time. And because my nervous system had been so regulated, that I am the woman who can compound growth in my business, even when challenges arise, even when it's like things I'm doing my own business, but also the factor of the world, what's going on. This is, how people's situation with money is or isn't. And I decided I wasn't available for that. And we've done that, and through that, there also have been challenges, right? To step into that version of me who could command like that required more than it ever has, right? Because I had to learn a new skill set. I had to, build authority in a slightly different like area. We did very much pivot. So I didn't have, I haven't been talking about this stuff for 5 years like I had the other stuff. And that required that new eye of the needle, but like that trust that I've built in myself allowed me to be successful in that. And I have lost, friends and people in my life who, as I quantum leap, I had to let go of that. So not only did I had to let go of old business models or old topics that I used to teach on, but I had to let go of people who couldn't meet me at that new level, people who had been my closest friends for years. And this happened just last week. There was actually, I was with Andrea the day after it happened, and I was like, oh yeah, this happened. This person's now out of my life. And I was like, wow, that is how fast the world can really rearrange once you claim that new level. But if I had resisted that, right, I either wouldn't have been as successful in my business if I had tried to been both. If I had been afraid of losing people or what people were going to think of me or projections or all of that, I wouldn't have gotten there either. So the only reason the quantum leap happened was because I am full in surrender of like, Jesus, take the wheel kind of moment. We're going through it. The wave is coming. Do what you will. Like if you remove people, if you remove this, it does not matter because I am tapped in, tuned in, like, and that is it. And so this is not just something that, I've done once. This is every time I've leapt, it's required a new level of trust, a bigger level of trust. And what I really like about the last 3 months is that it shows it's not just something, oh yeah, okay, you started your business 4 years ago and you had trust. It was like, well, no, I pivoted 3 months ago and applied everything I've learned to my whole body of work, and this was my result.
Wow. So how does life feel today as you pivoted, as you went through, as you quantum leaped? How do you feel in your life, in your body, in your essence?
I love the word effervescent. To me, it's like bubbly. It's like delightful. It's like we're just getting started. And you might think that like there was, fear, uncertainty, which maybe sure, but I was just so delighted because I feel just so alive by where I'm going and what I'm doing that to me, I don't even notice anything else because I'm so just excited about what we're doing and where we're going. And I feel like I said, I'm just getting started. So it's like, I don't even have time for fear or uncertainty or anything like that because I'm just so tapped into myself. And I just think like the more you can come back to and I know you know this, but I'm going to say it anyways, the more you come back to yourself and you live through that and you let that intuitive guidance guide you for where you're supposed to go and you stay tapped into that, you're going to feel delight along the way. You're going to feel excitement along the way. You're going to feel the effervescence. You're going to feel the joy. You're going to feel the bliss, but you actually have to allow yourself to feel it by allowing yourself to become more of who you were and be willing to let go, like I said, of those other things. Because maybe it would have been easier if I had said, oh, I had failed maybe in that business. And so I'm starting this new one. But no, like I'm still very good at doing what I used to do. It was very successful. And I still chose to let it go and do that. Right. Because I knew that was who I was, but it wasn't all I was meant to be. And so I also want everyone to think about how much you'd be depriving the world if you didn't allow yourself to be all that you are meant to be. How many, perhaps hundreds or thousands or maybe even millions of people you can impact by being all that you are.
Yeah, wow. And I feel now the frequency of courage is so present here. Like now we got the wow, trust and courage. I feel that's so much the topic here. Like courage, that takes such a profound courage to step forward in the almost comes the word the true nature the blueprint of your true nature that you really are. We cannot hide it. And these are the moments that it's all like pulled out of us, because that, as you said, it's not all that you are. So what to do? What to do other than go through and let it expand?
Yeah. And really, like, by doing so, you no longer sit in the agony of the resistance. For me, what really helped was it was actually more agonizing to not do it. If I thought about having another conversation about, 5 tips for bloating, I think I would shoot my brains out. Like, it was just so agonizing. And it's not that I could do that still, but it's just, for me, I had evolved. And so I could actually feel like, oh, I actually like the agony of having to do this still. No. And so I want your audience to even think about, where are those places where it feels heavy and agonizing and like, ugh, I don't want to do this, whether it's in your business, your relationships, like, what is it that's like, oh, I know that this is not it. I know I'm meant to be doing something different or more. And it's not that one is better than the other. They're just different, right? And so there's still, like, if you want to knit sweaters for cats and that is your mission on earth, beautiful. That's wonderful. That's perfect if that's what it is for you, right? One is not better. And so I think sometimes people can also judge perhaps what they want to do, because what if it's not big? What if, and to them, they don't want to cure cancer, so it's not, a big deal. It's whatever is your, your soul essence of what you feel, and that's big. That's big for you. And so don't judge yourself as well in terms of, is your thing good enough, or is it good compared to something else of what you want to do and what lights you up, and just really giving yourself permission to let it be whatever it wants to be.
That's an important piece, again, what you mentioned with the comparison, because we're so, the realms that we're speaking here about, there's no such thing as comparison. I mean, we're unique pieces, unique fractals of the one. How could we compare our fractal with another one? Like saying like, hey, she's doing 7-figure business and I want to knit the pullover for the cats. So like, it doesn't even make sense to compare, as you say.
Oh, and I love this, because you and I are probably a great example of like big differences, which I love. And that's why I think I wanted to mention, like, one, to me, one is not better than the other. They are both equal and important. And I think people need to give themselves a lot of permission with that, because I couldn't do what you do. And like, you don't perhaps desire to do what I do. Like, they're different, but they're both beautiful. They're both perfect. And they're both needed in our world. We came here to do different things.
Yeah, and also like how to bring the pieces together. That's what we're here for. We are to bring all of our pieces together into the one, right? So I always, just lately I had a situation with a client and she was asking like, hey, but I'm comparing always. Like, I just said to her, like, this comparison thing is normal, but why don't we twist it? That's an inspiration. If that's something that's calling you forward to go that way, that you get inspired by someone, not that you say, oh, but she's there and I'm not there yet.
Yeah.
If it's something that sparks in the soul, then we need to follow that. And there's somebody who's going like before us, even though that doesn't exist actually above, maybe doesn't exist in the realms of spirit. But if there's somebody who has gone the way already on this planet Earth, and you're just wanting that, then that's an inspiration, pure inspiration for the inner fire, right?
Exactly. I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I just feel like there's so much coming through, but I feel like I would love to give you just space to speak whatever comes through you at the moment. There's somehow this information
Wow.
like just say something that is really there present now for everybody listening. What is being delivered through you right now?
Interesting when you said that, the word ease came up, which is very much what I'm about. But I think more people need to believe that they actually can relax. I think more people need to believe that you can have a level of ease in life and in your business and in your money. And that if you believe like you could afford to relax, like what would you do? How would you be? right? If you were to stop offering up resistance and instead you offered up ease, like you can feel the frequency difference. If you could actually slow down your day and think about how you are going about it, think about whether you're doing actions and doing things from resistance or from lack or from some sort of separation, and instead bring yourself back to center and then do those things. Or perhaps you would do something different, but coming back into that center of like the relaxation first, the ease first, and where perhaps you're creating the conditions and limitations of what you believe it has to be or how you believe it should look, or what are the 5 million hoops I'm supposed to jump through. But what if you don't have to jump through any? What if there's just one eye of the needle, and the eye of the needle is to let go of jumping through the hoops and the conditioning, right? I think if more people kind of just slowed down and believe that they actually could, I think they'd like to believe that they can relax. I think they'd like to believe, you've heard ease, relax, that's how you do it, but they don't actually believe it in their bodies. If you were to slow down and just work on having that frequency become known in your body, I think you'd be really surprised by how the universe would rearrange in your favor. I think if you were to slow down and come back to that center more often, and this might be a practice where you might have to do it 10, 15 times a day at first of, oh, I noticed that I saw the comparison online. I thought I should be doing it like her, even though I really have no desire. But, I went to that space and now I think I should be doing it this way. And perhaps you start taking action for a week or a day out of alignment. Oh, can I bring myself back? Really, because that's the work, and that's when things will really start to open up for you, is allowing the ease that naturally wants to come through. Because to me, the truth is that all the blessings that you desire are already there. You're just actively resisting them. And so it's about removing all those layers of resistance that allows it to pour in. We're really not creating anything that's not there. It's already there. It's only our resistance to it. But people very much focus on the outside thing that is somehow going to get them that thing, instead of going internally to dissolve the resistance that will allow it in. And how much more easeful does that feel? If we were to think about your energy offering up resistance and pushing it out, and you're trying to figure out how to get it in, if you were to just like let go, then it rushes in. You can feel that. And that's what I think I want most for people, is for them to really like not only just experience that once, but regularly practice it, so that becomes who they are, and that becomes just a frequency of how they exist.
I love it. It feels like, I must say, it feels like there's so much goodness, and I feel like you are describing the same thing that I speak a lot, but I use other words, and I love just the way, I'm just in awe actually, the way you describe it and the way you bring it together. And wow, what a weaving. Maybe I feel like we've been weaving a net and a consciousness here as well together. Yeah, I just got the message just before like it's complete. I feel like we can wrap up here, and just asking if there's anything, last words, anything that you want to say.
I mean, I actually feel like that was perfect. To me, I think we ended on like a perfect, like the loop was closed. That was like what was meant to come through. And I think there's a lot here to digest. And I really encourage people to even like save this episode, come back to it, take notes, like have it as a reminder, because the human mind can sometimes get in the way, and sometimes we need this reminder of coming back to ease and coming back to relaxation and everything we've kind of talked about in terms of building trust and all of that.
Yeah, that's so good. That's so good. Okay, so then would you like to share where people find you if they're interested in tuning deeper into your world?
Of course, you can come on over to Instagram. It's just at Keep Up with Liv. And I also have a podcast. It's linked on my Instagram as well, so you can find it through there, or the Live Well podcast, where I share a lot of this and a lot of like tangible, actionable things to like apply it to your life, and how you can do that, and revealing kind of how we can just live in that more relaxation and more ease to live happier lives. So yeah.
That's so good. Okay, go and check her podcast. I've been listening. It's good. I can recommend too. So it's really nice. Okay. Thank you so much
Thank you
for
so
taking the
much.
time, bringing your trust, bringing your courage, bringing your rest into the space. I can feel it like it's so alive. And I really hope everybody who's been listening will feel it too.
Thank
Okay.
you so much for having me.
Thank you.